Hi, friends. Okay, so I am going to just give you a little bit of a. I'm going to keep my video off tonight because I don't have a light. And so I'm sitting in a dark room and you won't be able to see me anyways. So I am going to just have my picture up as we go through this workshop tonight. I'm so excited to share this information with you tonight about how to use a brand kit. This is a really um, this is a question that I get a lot on how to use it. I have created these for clients, and then they say, "What now?" So this kind of workshop is to answer that question of what now? Once you receive a brand kit, what now? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up the presentation and let me go ahead and make that big for us. Oh, like it's at the end there. It's at the end. So hold on, let's get back to the beginning. Okay, so here we are. We're going to talk tonight about how to use your brand kit. So this is either once someone has created a kit specifically for you, or once you yourself you've gone through the process of deciding your colors, deciding your fonts, all of that. So whether you did the process yourself or whether you had someone create a brand kit specifically for you, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, how to use it. So here's a list of the topics that we're going to go over. And it's just my hope that after we go through this, that you just have a better understanding of what a brand kit is, how it can serve you, your business, your online presence, your community, what have you, and how to best use it moving forward. I will say, when you have a brand kit, again, whether it's created for you or by you, this is going to be used for when you are creating your visual marketing materials, anything online, anything in print. And again, just like the brand kit, you may have someone else, like a VA or someone creating these visual things for you, or you might be creating them yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. As far as about me, I'm Whitney. If you've been with me for any of the other series, this is the third one. My background is actually in the medical field, and then I've been in the direct sales space for the last 6.5 years or so, kind of out of that now. Um, but I've learned that passions shift and new fires can be lit. I love visual marketing. I love the aesthetic look, system creation, all kinds of things. And I couldn't decide how do I choose between it all. And so I don't. I'm just leaning into it all and deciding that the sky's the limit. Um, I love working with entrepreneurs. I will say my biggest, target audience or passion are people just like me who are starting out on their, with their small business or what have you, and maybe they don't have a lot of money to invest in programs or courses, but they also want to level up their business. And so that is kind of where I step in with my mission of kind of helping you elevate without extending. So all right, so we're going to talk about what is a brand kit. I have two examples here for you. Essentially, a brand kit is just a collection of different elements, and there's usually about 4 or 5 elements. This is fonts, colors, style, or theme, or inspiration, pictures, that really showcases your brand's personality. It's a way for your brand to visually communicate to your audience. It's a way for you to start to become recognized within your professional space, your online community, what have you. And it's just a way for you to be consistent. So I have two brand kits here. One of them is my personal brand kit. And then another one is a client of mine. So as far as my brand kit, You can see at the top, I have two kind of logos or watermarks that you will see on any visual material that I create. So you'll either see the circle with the WS or you'll see Whitney Simpson with the two different fonts. I put those on all of my visual material and we'll talk about why later, but those are the two watermarks that I use or logos. And then you can see Jill Brown. So she's either got the JB Beauty or Jill Brown Beauty. And those are the two that she uses for her visual materials. And then you see the next space. Is my fonts. So I use the Glacial Indifference, I use Prada, and then you see at the bottom there, I use a white star. Those are the three fonts that I use for all of my visuals, all of my marketing. So you can see like on this page here where it says what is, that's written in a white star. The top where it says a brand kit is written in the Glacial Indifference. And then the actual body of this presentation is written in the Prada. So same thing for Jill. She's got three fonts. We really separate those out into kind of what are your heading fonts, what are your body fonts, and maybe some subheading. I did talk about that a little bit in a previous presentation, but the main thing is you want your fonts to be cohesive, but you also want fonts that are legible. So like for the body of this, well, we'll talk about fonts in a minute, but you'll see that in most brand kits there are typically three fonts. There's definitely at least two, just to give some variation to the marketing materials. Okay, so here's the components that we'll talk about. And I was going to get ahead of myself when talking about fonts. We're going to talk about watermarks and logos, color palette, typography, and elements and inspiration. So we're going to start with watermarks and logos. And I kind of just touched on this. You can see mine right there is the one I use is the circle with the WS. And then you can see JB Beauty. That's one of my clients. Are these really necessary? Okay, so here are my thoughts. First of all, whenever you create something, whether it's just a visual piece of content for social media, whether it's something visual or a graphic for an email campaign, a flyer, anything that you're creating, by having this watermark or logo, these are just identifying images or patterns used on all of your stuff. Basically, it's helping to protect your work and it's discouraging others from unauthorized use. Oftentimes, when someone sees something online and it does not have any kind of identifying watermark or logo, they feel that that is permission to just go ahead and use that visual in their own work and call it their own. However, if you do have some sort of identifying mark or whatever, it usually discourages them because you can see at the bottom, in my personal opinion, it ends up being free advertisement for you if someone does end up reposting, reusing, or resharing your work. But it does having this little watermark or logo, although it seems simple and small, it does help discourage others from using. It promotes your work. And again, it does help create this brand recognition and build credibility. So anytime you see anything that I have created, you're going to see this on my visual materials. And again, it's just getting some recognition for me, or whenever, like I said, my client Jill here, whenever she creates something, she's going to use this. And it's just creating that recognition so that whenever someone sees one of your pieces of work, your digital work, whatever, and they see that watermark and logo, they'll say, oh, yes, I know exactly who that belongs to. And it just builds recognition, it builds rapport, it builds trust. And again, like I said, I just feel like if your work does get um, reposted or reshared, it just is free advertisement for you. And I will say I am very strategic about the places of where I put my watermarks or logos on my materials, and I'll tell you why right here. So here are some examples of some just visual graphics. You can see in the one at the bottom that has a makeup palette. In the top right corner, you see that golden watermark. That is actually from a photographer that I am um, acquainted with. That is her watermark. And so anytime she shares um, photography images or anything like that, she's always got that watermark so that you know exactly whose work it is. I'm going to scooch this out of the way here. So on the second one in the middle where it says wash, in the top right corner, you can see mine. It says Whitney Simpson. Oftentimes, and this is kind of an older picture, so I might change the placement of it if I was actually using it, but oftentimes I will put my watermark or my logo in, like oftentimes if I redid this one, I would probably put it like near the word Bubba. And the reason being is because I try to place my watermark or logo in a spot where if someone did repost or reshare my material, and they tried to crop the picture to crop my watermark out, it would change the picture, meaning it would be better for them to leave my name in versus taking my name out. Because if they cropped out my name, it's going to take out an essential piece of that graphic. And then at the top, that's not really a watermark or a logo, but where the word sample is. That way, oftentimes something like that or a logo is put over a graphic. If you are trying to get approval from a client, you're not really ready for them to share the graphic, or maybe they haven't financially paid for your services and you don't want them using that work just yet, you usually will put a watermark or a logo or something over top of it so that they can still see, so they can approve the picture, but they can't technically use the picture. So there's just a couple examples right there of watermarks and logos. Let's talk about your color palette. Now, your brand kit typically has anywhere from 3 to 6 colors that make up your color palette. The reason being, if you only had one color, that's not really going to give you any recognition. It's not going to give you any variation in the visuals that you create. It's not giving you a lot of options. So usually you have anywhere from 3 to 6 colors. I do have an online course, and I do actually have a freebie that is going to be releasing soon on how to help you pick your colors. So be on the lookout for that. But these are usually complementary shades that moving forward you will use throughout any and all visual material that you create. Meaning, if you can see kind of mine, I consistently use that monochromatic black and white and gray. It's throughout all of my presentations that I do, all of my workshops. If you go look on my social media, my online presence, it's usually this monochromatic. You would never see me posting something like using one of these color palettes. You'd never see me posting something with a pink background or like this sage green, because that does not fit my brand. It does not fit in my color palette. Again, you want to be consistent. So having these 3 to 6 colors, again, helps with this brand recognition idea and just having a cohesive look. And that's what it's all about. So when you're creating, these 3 to 6 shades should be the only thing that you are using to create. Otherwise, if you're, one day you use a monochromatic palette, and then the next day you use like this pink one, and then the next day you use this more neutral sage one. You're really confusing your audience, and they're not able to really, again, develop this recognition of who you are, what you're about. And recognition leads to loyalty. And if you are in any space of sales, whether that be in direct sales or real estate or anything like that, you really want the recognition. You really want the loyalty piece of it to help with sales. Also, a big piece of this for your color palette, if you have someone make a brand for you, or if you are creating your brand kit for yourself, you should also be given each shade's unique hex code to help you remain consistent when creating. So that is the little 6-digit number that is underneath each of these colors. It starts with that hashtag, and it's either going to be a letter or a number. Um, Oftentimes when we're creating stuff, we think, oh, this shade is close. But when you put your visual things together, you might see that things are a little off. One pink is brighter than the other. One neutral shade is a little bit more mauve than the other. One you thought was white is actually a little bit more ivory. So having these hex codes are going to give you the exact same color you're looking for with each creation. And again, it's just going to help you remain consistent. As far as your typography or your font choices, I kind of got a little ahead of myself earlier discussing that. But just like your color palette, you are going to have about 3 fonts, and moving forward, these are the only font choices you should use when creating. Again, whether that's a flyer for your business, an email campaign, graphics, whatever, because you want to be consistent. So, oftentimes your brand kit will consist of a headings font, a subheadings font, and a body font. That is kind of the norm. And as you can see in mine, my headings font is the all caps, and then I have it outlined in black sometimes. That subheading is that more script font, and then the body is just kind of more of a classic font. In one of my previous workshops, you can I kind of go into detail a little bit more about each font and which one you would choose for the heading and whatnot. But the main idea is you probably don't want, now there are no hard fast rules, but I would suggest you probably do not want a script font. So like I have for my subheading or the word typography on this page, you don't want a script font for the body or the bulk of your material because you want that body font. So that's basically where I've written on here, like your color palette when creating, and then on the gray side of this presentation where it says, I should say your, but it says you, you brand kit. Um, you want those to be easy to be read. You want them to be legible. You want clear communication. So if you pick a script font, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to read. Your audience may struggle with it. And if you are in a position where you're trying to generate new leads, or you're in a sales position, if it's difficult to read, your audience is just going to move on. So I suggest clear fonts, easy to read fonts, and then you can always use those script or more fun personality fonts just as support fonts. Maybe not ones that are conveying the main idea. So here are some examples of typography in branding. As far as here's some that I have. So like my first one here says 5 reasons to keep your brushes clean. You can see that heading font was the 5 reasons. The subheading is the script font. But then I have the bulk of my material is written in a font that you can read. It's easy to read. On the far right here, the more like purple and sage, this is for a client of mine. So she has a couple fonts. We chose 2 of them for this graphic. She's got the more script font, and then she's got the word availability in kind of her main body font. And so because we want her availability to be easily read, when she fills those in under the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when she fills that in, she'll be using that font so that it's easy to read. So that's the main thing to think about is what is your client going to be reading? and making it clear and concise. However, consistently using your fonts to add a little creativity, some visual appeal to your whether it be a flyer, an email campaign, a graphic, it just adds a little something extra. But again, we're creating brand recognition. We're not confusing our audience. I mean, again, if you look at the purple, more sage example on the far right, those font choices, I wouldn't use those for my own personal brand. Not that I don't think that they're lovely, but again, it's not they're not ones that I use, and so I'm not going to confuse my audience by throwing in something completely different. My audience knows what to expect from me. They know they're going to get a monochromatic, clean, timeless look from me. That's what they've come to expect over the time of just using my brand. Um, so I'm just really focused on consistency, the cohesive look, and again, creating recognition throughout using these elements. So let's talk about elements and inspiration. So some kits do include kind of like stylized elements or kind of inspiration, mood board pictures, whatever you want to call them. Not all of them do. So again, if you are having someone create a brand kit for you, it may not include this. Or if you're creating one yourself, it may. But these help support the feel or the theme that your brand is trying to communicate. And again, just help with consistency when creating. So whether you're trying to create like a classic, elegant, timeless feel to the brand, or maybe you're someone who has a more boho style, you want to make sure the elements that you're using align with that. And so I have some things to consider when looking at your elements. So these pictures on the right, the top one, that is the inspo or the mood board or whatever you want to call it for my brand kit. And then the bottom one is the inspiration pictures from my one of my clients' brand kits. You can see that they're very different. However, when you're creating visual materials, you want to mix elements to give dimension, to give depth and excitement, and really draw in your audience when they're looking at your visual materials. But the key is, again, to always make sure you have a cohesive look. And again, this is where you tie in the colors, you tie in the font, you tie in these elements. To create these materials, but there should still be an overall theme. So when you're looking at the pictures on the right, so the top one, like I said, is mine. It's black and white. It's very classic. It's timeless. There was a time when I had a little bit of color in my brand kit, and it just felt so trendy to me. So I have just stuck with the tried and true monochromatic, classic, timeless. Just look or feel. That's very me. That's very reflective of me as a person. So when looking at that, I added in at the bottom there two little elements that I might use um, when creating something. If you look at the bottom picture, that has more of that boho feel to it. Between the colors, and then you see the two elements that I added at the bottom, the circle and the rainbow. So those elements are very boho. They're very cohesive with the inspiration picks, with her colors that we have in her brand kit. You would never see me creating a flyer, an email campaign, some visual with this circle or this rainbow next to one of one of the points that I was trying to make on my material. And the reason being is because that doesn't match the theme of my brand kit. And so essentially, if I threw in like if I used on the top picture there that almost like the white that looks like paint, and I was trying to communicate, you know, 5 tips about whatever. throwing in that rainbow at the bottom there, if I threw that in, that just it doesn't, it's not cohesive. It doesn't match the feel of my brand, and it would just be very confusing to my audience because they would say, you know, Whitney doesn't usually use color, that's a little bit off. So you want to make sure when you are using elements and inspiration pictures and things like that, you still remain consistent with the overall theme and style of your brand. Again, because the whole goal of this is to create recognition and to cut down on confusion. Again, if you go back to my social media, if you look at any, if you are on my email list or anything like that, go back and look, and you're going to see the consistent fonts. You're going to see the consistent colors. You're going to see the consistent themes because I am trying to create recognition within my target audience. You're not going to see a picture online with three fonts and a rainbow and all of these colors, like in this second brand kit example, and then the next post being black and white, and then the next, you're not going to see that because again, I don't want to confuse my audience. I want my audience to know what to expect from me. I want my audience to trust me. And I want to have that recognition so that when they see something created online or in the online space, they know it's me before they even see my name. So, um, back to like where we started. So, those are two examples again of brand kits that, again, you might create for yourself. Or you might have someone create for you. If you are someone who is going to create one for yourself, you might not have it laid out such as this. You might have it written down on a piece of paper, your hex codes, and you might have your fonts. Like you might not create an actual visual of your brand kit. Um, but you might also, after kind of chatting about this, you might also feel that this is a lot of effort to put in. When really, why can't we just like create what we want to create and send it out into the world? And you most certainly can. I mean, there are no hard, fast rules. You most certainly can. But again, the reason that you would want to keep this look, keep this feel, keep a style or theme, it's just your effort to help avoid confusion with your audience. And for me personally, I get a bit, I get a bit indecisive when creating things, and I get a bit difficult to commit, right? And so by having my brand kit, it cuts down on the choices that I have to make. So when I am creating a graphic, a flyer, an email campaign, I know I've got those five color choices that I'm going to be using. I know that I have those three font choices that I'm going to be using. So I don't have to sit here. I use Canva, and most people do when they're creating things. Canva is a very popular website or app to use for creation. But I know when I'm creating something on Canva, I have three font choices to use. I don't have to sit and scroll and then get confused about which fonts I like better and do these complement each other. And wow, this one's a little bit more stylized and I like the look of that. I don't have to make those choices because I already know the choices. I know I've got three fonts to use. I know I have five colors to use. So this is just, again, your way of building that recognition. It really shows your audience that you have a vision, that you have clarity. Dare say, I think it adds a level of professionalism, and it just helps build trust and loyalty within your audience. But again, I think truly when I am creating a visual element for my social media community or email, I really feel like it cuts down on the time spent creating because I already know what colors I'm using. I already know what fonts I'm using. The creative process can be daunting and it can be long and it can be um very time consuming. And if you yourself are not the creative person and you're hiring like a VA to help with your visual materials, it's going to cut down on the amount of time that VA spends creating. Because if your VA already knows that all your headings are going to be in one font and all the body of your content is going to be in another font, there's not time wasted on creating these graphics and visuals where font choices have to be made and color choices. So I truly feel like aside from the brand recognition, aside from the cohesive look, it really saves you time and potentially, again, money if you are hiring someone to create this for you. So those are kind of a few things to leave you with. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was helpful. I hope it showed you kind of where to go from here as far as once you have that brand kit, where do you go? How do you use it? So now you know when you're creating things, you know to use those 3 to 6 colors. When creating things, you use those 3 font choices. You use those boho elements or those classic elements, or you only use, what have you that's on your brand kit. And again, the main goal is just for recognition and clarity, cohesiveness, and all of that. So, be on the lookout. I am working on a Discovering My Brand or Your Brand course. Again, I have these level up series, and I will be more than happy to send those out via email. If you missed one of them, this is the third one. If you have any questions, though, there's obviously over here is some contact information that you can get in touch with me, either on my website or through email, or you can text. But I hope this is giving you a little bit more clarity on whether you created your brand kit or someone else did, where to go from here. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.